Previously, as I've reported at council meetings, our last two monthly sales tax reports have been generally flat. So that's 2 months in a row that has occurred. We now have word that the state is seeing a significant slowdown in income tax and sales tax revenues as well. So if that is a trend, certainly that's going to impact this year's budget, and we'll need to be prepared to make course corrections as necessary as we watch the numbers go by. So this year really bears watching as opposed to the last few years. So we will keep an eye on all that. I don't anticipate any problems really with this year's budget, but I think there will certainly be impacts probably next fiscal year. What that means for us is basically issues with regards to how we perform our street maintenance in the coming years. As you know, HERF revenues do not even come close to adequately meeting our street maintenance needs. But if we feel the pinch in general fund revenues like sales tax, that will also impede our abilities to perform adequate street maintenance going forward. So that's something that we need to watch as well. So you have also large competing needs between the implementation of your Parks Master Plan and, of course, street maintenance that will be competing for those general fund revenues. And if they slow down, that will make for more difficult choices going forward. So those are some of the things that we'll be keeping our eye on. Victoria stands ready to make the budget presentation. I just want to thank her and the budget team, Mr. Felix, and of course Jen, and as well as the department heads for helping to put together this budget book. And I think you'll find that there's still a lot of good things in here for you. So with that, Victoria.
Thanks, Chuck. Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of council. I'd like to echo Chuck's thanks to the most excellent budget team anybody could have between Jen and Dave and all of our department heads and division managers. As always, I appreciate all of their help and willingness to work with us to put this together for you. So I'm pleased to present your fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget in its entirety. We're going to go through today the changes we've had from your tentative budget book, of which there aren't that many. We'll go back through your revenue, your debt, O&M, personnel, capital, brief overview of future issues, and our next steps as always. So starting with our general fund, we had a couple of last-minute adjustments. I'd mentioned in a previous work session that we were taking another look at the cost of the Fire Station 1 plumbing redo. The original estimated cost was $150,000. We thought that was rather high, and so I went back to Public Works and asked them to get another company in to look at it, and they came back, as we kind of suspected, with an estimate of about $50,000. So that gave us $1,000 to reallocate. We realized we'd forgotten to add chair replacements in the city manager's conference room, and so we added those. The rest of the money will go towards an increased PSPRS contribution, saving any further changes between now and your tentative and final budgets. On the HERF fund, we were very pleased to add a still potential but highly likely SMART fund reimbursement from the state. Staff were able to get that in last minute. That will reimburse the cost of the North Garden street project design, and we will allocate that money towards the Martin Luther King reconstruction project. In the sewer fund, as we also shared before, we added the Highway 90 emergency design and construction project that will address the emergency repair needed right at the Charleston Highway 90 intersection and increase the carryover to cover that project. And then we had a request for 2 proposed additions from the mayor, and I'll turn that over to the mayor to share with council what those 2 items are.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So the Hummingbird Days is, we all know that Sierra Vista is the Hummingbird capital of the U.S., and there's an event in 2024 that we would like to participate in, and they the PLC, the chair, would like to have a parade as well as other events in the park to have budgeted out to about 20K to support this event. Also, the Christmas lights on the West End, about $10,000 for new lights stringing across the West End to make it more festive. Christmas trees, to have a draw to the West End that make this more Christmassy. And those are the two items that we have proposed. Sir.
Hummingbird Days, $20,000. This is a new precedent. We don't normally do that, so I don't know why we're doing it now.
It's a new initiative.
Okay,
Proposed.
so here's, I guess my question, are we gonna do it for every nonprofit that wants to do an event? And if not, how are we gonna pick and choose?
But it's have to be tied to a certain nonprofit. I mean, I think
We're not the one, who's putting on Hummingbird Days? The city?
who we partnering with.
Who were part of the Hummingbird Festival.
Okay, it says days on here, I'm sorry. Either one, Hummingbird Festival, who are we partnering with?
I had to get
Here's
that
my
information.
point. So I know in the past, nonprofits and other people come to us for ideas of sponsoring events. As soon as we do one, how do we say no or pick and choose who we help and who we don't? Like the 4th of July, we're a minimum number of 4th of July. The Rotary takes care of most of 4th of July.
Right.
Our parades, a parade is city throws, but even the parades, Chamber of Commerce does one funding and they pay for it. We have a minimum involved financially in those events for a reason. Once we start opening up floodgates to, I'm gonna help event number one, then do we do it for everybody?
Well, what organization is going to be doing the festival?
That's what I'm asking, I don't know.
It's connected with the Hummingbird Festival, so I had to get more information on that. Yes, ma'am.
So, this idea came from a meeting that we had with the community members, and they thought, they would like that. So I think it's called the Birdies Festival that they have, Victoria.
Southwest Wings?
Yes, I'm sorry, Southwest Wings. And so we had spoke with them, and we're just trying to move this event forward. And that's why I believe that the mayor has asked the city to help move this event forward. I mean, my question is about that, so I don't know if that helped you any, sorry. But so my question is, when we come with this, and this is for you, Victoria, when we bring stuff like this, then to me, what's not gonna happen if we, do this event and do these Christmas lights? I mean, I know you can't really answer that, but just for instance, are we not gonna be able to get chairs, or is, a building not gonna get fixed, or, how does that?
Ron Peter PayPal.
No, at
Right,
this
yeah,
point,
how does that work?
That first item, since we were able to pull $100,000 off of the Fire Station 1 plumbing project, we would just reduce that increased PSPRS contribution is where the money would probably come from.
So nothing would suffer?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I tend to agree with Mr. Benning on this one. We didn't support the cowboy poetry. I mean, they folded because they didn't have enough interest and not enough money. So I don't know about this one. Of course, we're talking 20,000, which is nothing really when you're looking at this budget, so.
Yes, ma'am.
When we set aside money for special events like Oktoberfest and 4th of July, Vineyards, are we ever, Westfest, are we ever giving that money to an organization, or that's like our in-kind contribution, or a mixture of that?
So,
Because on page 167, we have a breakdown of how much we spend for these events already.
yes,
And I don't know if we're, like, for 4th of July, I don't know if we give that to the Rotaries or the?
So a
We
lot of
have
it's
some
in
staff
kind and-
report or some staff support for 4th of July. The other events that are put on by city staff. I don't believe we give any money to another organization to put on an event.
So this would be the. So this would be the only one like that. Are we? I don't know all the details, but can we help in ways that the way we help with the other community events? Is there ways we can do it? Just to address some of the concerns.
Go ahead, I'm
Yes.
listening.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, this is one of the reasons why I've asked Ms. Wilson to come up with an event policy for your consideration moving forward. To try and explain it as simply as possible, you have a couple of events that you put on that are community events. They're tied to holidays. So you have 4th of July, which Rotary Club raises all the money for, the fireworks, provides volunteers to, sell, beer, wine, hot dogs, all those kind of things. Of course, other vendors are invited. And Rotary makes proceeds off the sales of the beer and wine, hot dogs and that kind of thing. Veterans Day, there is really no offsetting revenues or other groups provided, so we budget, for those types of events. You also have other large events like the recent, Summit Challenge and Beer, Wine, and Spirits Festival, and Oktoberfest is your other large one. Those are designed to try and recoup the costs associated with them with revenues. So we at least try to break even or maybe make a little bit of money on those. We don't really have other partners in those types of events. So, from a policies perspective, the council's choice is, do you want to add events, and then if so, then there should be some sort of a budget associated with that, that, Laura's group can cost out, and we can give you an idea of how much it's going to cost to run the event, whether there are any revenue opportunities associated with it, and give you an idea of the staff time and effort that are involved with that. So, and obviously we have a lot of groups that then want to have events. Some are asking for city help, some do not, and we just provide the space for them and that kind of thing. And that's really all dependent on whether or not there's enough room at the park or wherever they're trying to do it, and, available dates and those kind of things. So, that's, what I've asked Laura to try to work through. So as a matter of policy, your decision is we want to add another event to celebrate hummingbirds in Sierra Vista. Therefore, it's the council has chosen to do that and add those costs to the budget and allow Laura and then and her team to cost that out and figure out what it takes to put it on for you.
So we will need a cost analysis before we go forward.
Well, I would view this as seed money. You mentioned Cowboy Poets, and that required seed money for like 3 years to get it going, and then it went very well for a number of years, and we stopped subsidizing it at that point in time. Of course, many of the founders of that event have since either passed on or have aged out, and now it's difficult to find volunteers to do it and raise the money to put on Cowboy Poets. So it's kind of run its course, so to speak. So there's a lot of different ways to do these things. If there is a partner group that wants to do it, we could figure out how to work with them to put on Hummingbird Days, for example. So there are ways to get this done. It's just a matter of, when you add events, there's generally cost involved with it. There certainly is staff time and then usage of the venues and all that are also involved.
You got something?
No, I mean, I would like to try to see that this moves forward One, because again, we're the hummingbird capital, and I think that this would also be a good tourism thing. I mean, you know, there's, I'm gonna say hundreds, but probably thousands of people come to our city to see the hummingbirds. I don't know what that hummingbird festival or days even would look like. I mean, I don't, but I think that we could at least try and move, you know, at least have those meetings, knowing that we have a little bit of money to start it. If, you know, at the end of the day, it's not something that we can do, but, you know, I don't think Laura can't do anything, so I think she can help us do something. But I just think that, I think we should try. I mean, I don't see a reason not to try.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I agree with that thought of, are we or are we not trying to push our name as the hummingbird capital of the U.S., and how are we going to do that? Are we ever going to get to do something? Are we just going to keep saying that, yeah, that's us, but we're never going to do anything about it? Just to say, oh, I hope somebody does one day. It's, I mean, we have to actually help out a little bit, I think,
Yes, sir.
to get the process started. Yes, it's never been done before, obviously, but a lot of things haven't been done before. So everything started somewhere. Cowboy Poetry started somewhere. So I think, obviously, yes, there's more information needed for sure. I agree with that as well. As to what it entails or what it looks like, what this, because I don't know what it'll look like eventually, or what the plan is, what the goal is, what the vision is. But I do agree that we need something towards something like this. So I do agree with that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, first and foremost, we're saying we need something. We don't know what this is going to look like, but we're going to give them $20,000. To me, that's like someone saying we have to vote yes to know what's in it. Here's, in my opinion, the two things we need to do. First, if we think we need a festival, we need something like that, we put it in our strategic plan. So then the staff who puts those events on and is then directed to do it by us in our strategic plan, and we go through the right process of doing it. The second thing, if we wanted to look at bringing in outside help and supporting and going forward, I think then we need to make a policy, which is what we do, that drives staff to say, come up with a policy on how the city can best use our finances, our resources, and our money to help these events that are coming to the park, or people that come before us, who can explain, just like a business would have to get money from a bank, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do it, how you're gonna profit, where the profit's gonna go. So it's not just arbitrarily, I mean, we're putting on the second annual Father's Day event this weekend at the park. A huge event, y'all went to it last year, but it's all self-funded, because we don't get money. Same, we put on a killer glow ride. We had 340 vehicles last Christmas. We do that as a nonprofit. Well, we're not even a nonprofit. But when we start saying arbitrarily, we're going to give somebody $20,000, and I don't care if it's $1,000. We're picking winners and losers and nonprofits that are putting on events that hasn't even come before us. So what did we say to all these other people that put on events that asked for the city help and was turned down because we don't do that? So now it's like a business. If a business comes in and says, hey, I want you to waive the development fees, and we say, okay, for you, we'll waive the development fees. But the next business comes in and says, we want development fees waived, and we're going to say yes or no, and we have to say one of the two, so we say no. So now, again, we're picking winners and losers in the city. This man. I'm sorry, I'm
The mayor
saying
has
I'm
to
done, I know.
recognize me.
Let's go to Marta and then to Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and again, I don't know, I don't think that we're giving the money to anyone. I think we're trying to start an event within the city, and, you know, and we're hoping that this little bit of money will, you know, allow us to do something to, you know, to get other organizations to come and say, yes, we want to be part of that. Just like, you know, I know we've, you know, again, well, I guess the poetry, the cowboy poetry, we helped them start it, and I guess that's what we're asking, is to help start a festival so that then it can go on its own in there. But again, I'm just speaking, I mean, we haven't even had a meeting with this group of people, but we want to start and do something.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, I agree with those points. We still have time to add whatever we need to add to our strategic plan. And if we do choose to set aside money for an event and we want to hear from the group first and it falls short of our expectations or what we were thinking it would be, we don't have to spend that money on that event. You know, we can budget for it, but not do it if it's not. But I think a precedent was already set when we supported the cowboy poetry. So it's not like we haven't helped out groups in the past temporary, and it would be with the understanding that this is not going to happen every year. If or maybe we'd have to see how this policy looks. But I think I would love to have a Hummingbird Days or I'm sorry, Hummingbird Festival. I think that'd be great. But I agree. I want to know what that looks like, and okay. I'll shut up.
Mayor McCaw, Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey, members of council. It sounds to me that the request is for seed for a city event. So there's a group of interested citizens, I think, that are interested in seeing this event come to pass. It doesn't sound to me like they're a nonprofit or a group seeking to raise money to support scholarships or whatever the case may be. It's just a city event. If so, then, obviously the seed money would be needed to help Laura's group, put together, the event. And then, I would, let her creativity and her group's creativity, take over and see if there's ways that revenue could be made from the event, whether we could find sponsors to help pay for the event, ways to recoup the costs. So really, I think you're talking more about a city event, and if I'm not mistaken, and Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a general overall goal in your strategic plan as to providing or looking at events, as a way to help, economic development and bring tourism and people to the community. So at least that was in the last strategic plan. So
There was in the last one. I'd have to check the draft, but if it sounds like that's something Mayor and Council would like to see, I can easily add that to the draft for discussion next week, since you requested the strategic plan to come back next week.
That'd be great.
So really what we're talking about is we're going to create a citywide event. You're within the budget, you're providing seed money for that. And then I would task Laura and her group to see what it takes to put this on. Then we could report back to you. We're working with this group, and we don't even know what this looks like yet.
Right.
So I can't even really get into that yet. But I think somebody must have a vision for this, and certainly Laura can work with that. I think so.
Yes, ma'am.
I do see that the positive part of having some sort of Hummingbird Festival, especially since Sierra Vista, we're wanting to push the, being the Hummingbird capital. And I think that's great. That's a really great way to do it. There's been other comments. We have the mural. There have been comments about some sort of sculpture of some sort. So I do see that as a way to start pushing that and kind of see where that goes and bring that as some sort of draw. Because some of the surrounding cities have similar type of things that bring draws to them. I do have the concern that focusing on maybe one organization or one group maybe will bring other people, and that can be kind of like taking things as a case-by-case basis and, not being fair to some groups or others. I do feel that there definitely is a need to have some sort of policy, to have a guide, to guide for anything in the future. And as far as providing like the seed money for like the cowboy poets and stuff, I can't really speak on that very much. But I mean, if that's something that's been done in the past, and it's kind of just, I guess sometimes you have to take a risk and kind of see where that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think the proposal for Hummingbird Days of the two is premature, because we don't know what it's going to look like. We can do stuff internally without allocating $20,000 towards it. The Christmas lights on the West End, that's another potential issue, because we really focus on Veterans Park during Christmas. with the Santas and the tree lighting and all that other kind of thing, and to draw away from Veterans Park when that's our, that's the key thing. Just my opinion.
Yes, sir.
I agree on the lights. I agree with that also. We're I know in talks, Parks and Recs have been talking about it. Other commissions have been talking about it. Bringing more to, and that's why we have the skating rinks. Bringing more to Veterans Memorial Park and blowing that up, where that's the focal point where we want people to go for the holidays. I don't mind lights all the way down Fry Boulevard, but I agree with Greg on that one also.
Kind of disagree with both of you on that one. I would like them both. I would think, in my mind, both places, Veterans Park as well as the West End. We're trying to fix the West End up. Why not let it be Christmassy like the Veterans Park?
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
We do have Christmas activities put on by nonprofits and churches on Fry Boulevard during Christmas time. I think it would help enrich those things because we need to draw people there too, and we need to make it more welcoming when you come outside the now main gate from Fort Huachuca. I like that idea. I like both ideas. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, I don't, I think we can accomplish these things if the council desires to do that. I don't think we have to spend, we can budget $20,000 for Hummingbird Days. I don't think we need to spend it. What we would do is give Laura the task of working with the group and costing it out and seeing what she could do. Come back at a work session and present, what she's found to you, and then you can decide to proceed based on having more information at that point in time. So I don't view that necessarily as a really big deal. My concern would be how many more festivals are we going to do in the future, and with limited staff. I have more of a concern about that than this particular festival. The Christmas lights on the West End. We've had a private group do the Santas in the park, and they raised the funds and spent the money to produce the Santas. We've gone out before and asked the business community to donate funds for banners on the West End and that kind of thing. And certainly if we knew what kind of lights or banners we were buying and it could agree on that, then we could try to solicit, private funds to help offset the cost of doing that. So and that has been done here in the past, and people did participate. So again, this I would just view as seed money. Maybe we raise the funds and we don't have to spend it at all. So that's how I kind of view that.
Ms. Patucek, I like your suggestion. Just move it towards direct your staff to come up with an analysis and assessment, then present back.
And we can do that on both these items.
Okay.
So.
Excellent. How does the council feel about that? Sir?
I think they both fall under Ignite and Innovate. Ignite and Innovate, if we're looking at our strategic plan that we're all finishing up on anyway. If you look at it, those fall in very nicely anyway, so I don't think it'd be too difficult to add it to that or to touch any of those points.
Roger that. Any other comments, questions? All right, sir, thank you for your suggestions. We can move forward with that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, reference those proposed additions? Cool. All right, ma'am.
Okay, and I will add an item to your strategic plan draft for you all to see by the end of the week when we send out the agenda.
Yes.
We still need a policy, though.
Yes, still need a policy.
We'll include the policy in there. How about that? All right, here's a snapshot of your budget by major fund. Just a quick going over what the differences are from this year to last year. And your total budget has gone up a little bit from last meeting to a total of $169,603,775. Some of your major differences here, we'll go over the general fund in pretty good detail coming up here. The HERF increase is grant projects. The LTAF fund is also grant projects. The change in the airport fund is really a change in the projects and placeholders from that we'd put in for previous years, taking those out. The capital improvement fund change from last year to this year is the Schneider Electric project. The change in the sewer fund is primarily the emergency projects we have going on at Highway 90 in Charleston, and then the emergency repair at the plant that is ongoing right now. The difference in the refuse fund is really we had over $900,000 budgeted last year for vehicles, so we don't have that this year. So it's not that the fund's being reduced; we're not ordering as many vehicles. And all other funds, the change that covers your grants fund, your donations, CCOM, the MPO, your debt service. So all of those changes combined is just collected under that all other funds tab. This is just a fun graphic on how your budget by expenditure type shakes out in pie chart format and what the various percentages are of the total budget. Okay, your revenue summary, not a whole lot of changes from the last time you've seen this, and this is revenue by category, not fund, when you look at this. So the city's sales tax reflects, we did keep it at 3%, not the 4% we had initially settled on. Why it says 3.8% is that's 3% over expected year-end revenues. So it looks like it's slightly more than actual 3%. The increases in licenses and permits, that's business license fees, right-of-way permits, building permits. We are tracking trend upward in all of those. In local government payments, that's your Fort contract, that's the Public Safety Academy, that's CCOM trending up. State shared revenue, that's all of your, that's income tax, vehicle licensing tax, urban revenue sharing, HERF fund, that shows the increase in all of those, especially the income tax for this next year. GMC revenues, that's Government Maintenance Center, that's the Pete Castro Center, and that's our fuel sales and our labor and fluids, the work we do for all of our intergovernmental partners. If you recall, we did increase our prices last year, and it reflects the increase in cost of fuel. Transit revenues, we did keep out the fare revenue. That $21,400 left over, that is from the cell tower lease, the cell tower that is present on the property, the revenue goes into this fund. Airport revenues, that's your hangars, fuel, tie downs, and office rental. The decrease in planning revenue, that's abandonments and abatements, just adjusting for trends and what we're anticipating for next year. The decrease in donations, this is not just donations from members of the public or so on. This is actually any non-governmental entities. So we budgeted in here for things like the $1.2 million animal control donation that didn't actually happen. That's also where we budgeted for the reimbursement from Walmart for their portion of the culvert and bridge to build Avenida Escuela. So that's why it looks like it's significantly less from last year. The change in notes payable, that was the Schneider project from last year. Carryover, we have a significant number of carryover projects next year. Those are all the ones you'll see on our, as I go through the capital projects that are marked carryover. So that's transit grants, all the multi-use paths in there. That's the Animal Control Center, that's North Garden. So there's quite a few carryover projects this year.
Real quick.
Sir.
Yeah, just back up to the planning. You said there's going to be less abatements projected for this coming year? That's why that number's different? 18,000 less?
I believe so. Our abatement budget has not changed, but this is revenue from abatements, not the abatements that will perform.
Okay. Thank you.
A quick refresher on debt. We finance certain capital projects depending on a number of factors. The financing term always matches the expected life of the equipment. And we've got two major types of debt. You have bonds for long-term, like our Schneider Electric sales tax revenue bonds, and lease purchase short-term, like we do for vehicles. So our debt situation is looking very good. We only have one lease outstanding right now, and that's in refuse for some refuse trucks. In the sewer fund, that's the current bond. That pays off in fiscal year '28. The debt service, that's your annual debt service payments for the Schneider Electric bonds, but currently there is no outstanding debt service in the general fund, HERF fund, airport, or capital improvement fund. And this is just how debt has tracked year to year. All right, operations and maintenance for all funds. I'll go through that. It's the major changes in the next page, which will cover most of the significant increases or decreases here. I'll point out on the Parks, Rec, and Library, we didn't cut on that one. We just had a lot more projects budgeted for next year, so we didn't cut $110,000 out of Laura's budget. Community development is similar. That's really because we transferred some money. We had the design funds for Fab Avenue were budgeted in community development. Those were moved to parks, so we didn't reduce $180,000 from community development. We just moved where a project was budgeted. We had a small change in human resources. Those are increased cost of legal fees. That's for our labor relations attorney. That's primarily the city is handling a few disability cases this year that we require outside counsel for. In the IT division, some of these things just change year to year depending on needs. That reducing the number of replacement tablets, that's 5 fewer PD laptops for vehicles. We got 5 more vehicles for PD in last year because we had that huge backlog of vehicles. So we're not buying them less laptops. They're getting what they need. We just have fewer vehicles coming in this year because we don't have that backlog anymore. As far as software and office equipment maintenance goes, most of those increases, some of it is just we're seeing an increased cost across the board. We had $3,000 here, $8,000 there for various software or services we subscribe to. We also have subscribed over the past few years to a number of software packages to increase efficiency, better serve the public, help staff better do their jobs. Some of those items are listed here, like a new capital projects module that will help staff know exactly where we are, real-time budgets, timelines, and so on for capital projects. Our Placer software that we've discussed that is giving us real-time information on who's visiting our events, where are they coming from, how much money are they spending, where are they staying, where are they going after their events. So that is really helpful. And I can't wait to see the one from the Summit Challenge and Beer, Wine, and Spirits Festival. Blue Ink is a new digital signature software that will do more than just allow people to sign things from the comforts of their homes or offices. people we work with, other vendors or business people. So this will be really useful to Kenny and procurement, but it'll also help us with our contract management. We'll know when things are expiring and need to be renewed. We'll know the workflow on who needs to sign something or where it needs to get transitioned to next, so things won't get lost in transit and so on. And then Canto and Hootsuite, those are, Canto is a digital asset management software, so we'll be able to keep better track of all of the thousands and thousands of digital assets we have, pictures, videos, so on. Right now, they're just in folders on a server, so it's difficult to know exactly what we have or to search for something and find it. So that will help that. And then Hootsuite is our social media management software, so it helps manage all of the various Facebook and other social media pages that each department has.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, is Canto? Canto? I don't know. Canto, okay. Is that going to change, you know, how we've been having issues with the reading room? You know, like being a little messy?
No.
No? Okay.
That's SharePoint, which actually we're in progress with a SharePoint update right now. Abe and his team have been working on that.
Okay.
And I think we're demoing tomorrow, our technology team, what the new features are. But it's looking a lot more user-friendly, so
Okay.
we'll be ready to roll that out soon.
Yay, okay, thank you.
The change in professional services for finance, when the Arizona Department of Revenue notified all cities and towns that they were going to a new software, they didn't have an actual cost for us, so we had to budget high last year. So this year, now that they have moved to the new software, now we have an actual cost, and it was much less than we were all asked to budget. So that's just the actual cost of the software for next year. All right, city clerk, we have no election for next year, so that money comes out. You'll see it go back in the next year since we contract with Cochise County to manage our elections. Economic development, we had a small increase in professional services, again, for some additional software or service called Blue Dot, not to be confused with Blue Ink. We're all getting confused, but that will help track customer engagement whenever economic development engages with business, email, phone, visits, all of their engagements will be tracked in that software. Under legal professional services, both good and bad news. The good news, this is a reduction in cost for our court services for next year. If you recall, our contract is based on caseload. So this means that far fewer cases were cited into the court last year. The formula is recalculated every March, and we receive the new cost. So our cost has gone down. That's largely attributed to having fewer police officers on the streets. So good news, we're saving money. Bad news, we all know we need to get our staffing up, and I know Lily and others are working very hard on that. So you'll see that fluctuate year to year for those reasons. We had an increase in insurance costs for this year. We expected that, and it wasn't as high as we thought it might be, so that's good news. Fire overall, the professional services, the third-party organizational assessment was something the fire department had asked for, and we were able to budget for this year to look at their staffing and so on. The rest of the increase is really due to Station 4 coming online, additional staff, additional supplies needed. So that's also understandable given we added another station last year. We did a small decrease in the West Sierra Vista Partnership Program for next year to $85,000. We had $100,000 budgeted for this year. It's just what we're projecting for requests. As always, if we would happen to get more requests than we have specifically budgeted, I'm sure we'd be able to find the money for those requests.
How much did we spend of that 100,000 last time?
We're expecting to spend the entire $100,000 this year.
Okay. but we don't think we'll need that, like, why do we think we won't need that much this coming year?
Matt is always talking to, and Tony and Diana, anticipated projects. So what they're tracking for the upcoming year should be around that 85,000. If it is more than that, we will find the money for it.
Thank you.
In engineering, we had a ADQ increase their stormwater permitting, so great year for that. And then facilities, just building maintenance. We have a few roof repairs going on, the remodel for the council chambers, electric and natural gas, both trending well up. And then infrastructure maintenance, the big item that's really hitting that budget this year is the Cove pool really needs to be resurfaced, and that will be a pretty substantial cost.
Sorry, I have another question. When did we last do the resurfacing? Was that included in the first Schneider when we did the, no? Oh, okay, I'm thinking
Not
of
sure
something
if
else
we
then.
have resurfaced the pool yet.
Oh, it's never been?
I don't-
We
Yikes.
have. I remember from the first time I worked for the city. So it had to be 2005 to 2008 during
Yeah,
procurement
it's
that
been,
time.
it's been about
Okay.
15 years.
Yeah, that's due.
And
All
it's
right.
starting to disintegrate, which creates other problems.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Free pedicures.
Three
That's,
pedicures.
yeah.
That one. I like that.
Pedicures wear off though. We need a fourth.
Yeah. Yes,
All
sir.
sounds like
Oh,
five
thank you,
minutes.
Mr. Mayor. Hey, can we go, we don't even have to go back, for the West, the West End Sierra Vista Partnership Program, can we, and because it's up here, and I don't mind going down to 85,000, can we have a, here's where we were, here's where we now, presentation in the future, like soon, rather than later? Thank you.
Matt's currently on vacation to Thailand,
Yeah, he
so
said, he's in heaven.
we'll schedule that for when he gets back.
I gave him a couple places to go. Not those tight places. Islands to visit.
All right, the cost of parts continues to trend up. So we added $40,000 for that this year. Equipment maintenance has trended down, so we adjusted that number to reflect actuals from this current fiscal year, and then of course fuel is up for everybody. We did increase revenue to offset some of that fuel cost though, since we sell it to intergovernmental partners. Recreation, the increase in event supplies is primarily for the ice rink rental for next year. We had a grant to cover most of the cost from this current year, so we're budgeting for the full cost for next year due to its outstanding success.
Yes, ma'am.
And I need to remind, how much did we get in revenue for people to, they bought tickets, right? And I think I bought tickets, right?
Yes, you did.
We hope.
I probably did.
And Ms. Wilson.
Mayor,
Took my kids to
Mayor
something.
Pro Tem Humphrey. Yeah, we brought in about $78,000
Okay.
last year. I'm proud to say that we were the most affordable ice rink in the state, and we learned a whole lot, and we think there's even more we can do. So we're gonna try to recoup it. We'll do our best for sure, but excited about it.
I just, I think it's fair to keep that in mind that we're not just paying that full amount. Okay. And are we, just because we're talking about it, are we doing the same size?
That is a great question because costs go up.
Yeah.
And so it'll have to go out again through Miss Downing's group, and she does a great job finding something good. We will spend it on the biggest rink we can afford,
Okay.
and we will operate it excellently as we did last year. But Kenny is, she's our bulldog, and she'll get us a good rate, I have no doubt.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait.
You sure? All right.
And in parks, this is what I was mentioning before. We shifted some things. Roadrunner Park design that needed to move to capital improvement funds. We just shifted that. It's not actually a decrease. And infrastructure and maintenance looks like a significant decrease because we budgeted so many things there last year, like new armadas, canopy replacements, new path at Lynn Roberts, pickleball resurfacing, tot turf. So this year, Laura has playground sand, we have new portable bleachers, ADA water fountains, and top dressing for parks. And among other things, so.
Since we're talking about canopy
Sure.
replacements, since we're talking about canopies, are those still like everything else in the world on backwater? I know some came in, right, the canopies? And is there still slow flowing, or do we have them all in yet?
They, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Rodriguez, yes, to my knowledge, all of the ones in the parks have been received. The Ramada replacement is going on now, and I believe is scheduled to be finished by the end of this fiscal year, so this next month, or the end of this month, yeah, we're in June. But yes, all of the
Okay.
ones that we ordered are in over the playgrounds.
Okay, thank you.
To wrap up our O&M changes here, in sports, Laura's team is going after more co-sponsored indoor sports contracts, so that's a great thing. The increase in rec supplies, that's concession equipment for the new concession stand at Veterans Park, the sports complex, and then we need some additional sports field fencing replacements. In the library, those mobile hotspots, those are hotspots that people can check out to have internet connection for a few weeks at no cost. They've been hugely popular. The Friends of the Library bought the library's first group of those mobile hotspots. So now we are replacing them. They're getting out of date, so, but it's a very popular service.
Mr. Mayor. Quick question, and I looked in Public Works, and I don't know if it's just gonna be in Public Works or if it's all around. Last year, we brought up several times about an asset management. Do we have budget anywhere for like an asset management program, software, research, or bringing people in to help us establish something? I didn't see anything like that, so I don't know if we're looking at, I know from talking to you and Chuck, we were looking into it, but I ain't see nothing budgeted, so I'm just asking.
We have one through Munis, Mr. Benning.
Okay.
I know Sharon's staff primarily are working on updating it, so I'll let her chime in on progress.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Benning, I have one of my three managers. She is super passionate about asset management and has taken this on as a personal challenge to revamp our system. However, this year, due to the challenges at transit, she has been deflected elsewhere. So I expect her to be able to pick that up in the coming year, but she just had to pull off on other priorities while we were so short-staffed at transit.
Now, if I may ask, are you looking just for Public Works, or are we gonna look for the entire platform of Sierra Vista?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Benning, we're starting just with Public Works because we own the majority of the assets that the city has. We can certainly branch out from there after we have the system in place. I know she's already talked to Mr. Felix about it. She's talked with IT about it as well. So there's a variety of ways we could go, but just even getting that initial part started is a huge lift.
Thank you, and I didn't want to get into that discussion because it's not on the agenda, so I figured I'd just ask about the fund money side, but I appreciate your answer, thank you.
All right, pie chart you're looking at right now is the percentage of the operations and maintenance budget allocated to each department. And as you can see, almost half of it is in the Public Works Department, which fits with what we were just discussing.
Tell Nate, because he wasn't here, that's why league was only 1%. He's in Hawaii having fun. If he was here, he'd at least get 2%.
All right, personnel changes for next year. Each of these amounts includes full burden, so new positions for next year will be, or in the budget, are a fire department management analyst, an admin secretary for HR, a tourism management analyst. A portion of that cost will be paid for by the Cochise County Tourism and Economic Council, 1 police records clerk, and 2 community service officers. One of those positions was overfill from last year. The other would be a new CSO. You might recall we had a number of reclassifications for this year. These are part department requested that HR went out and did the market comparison on, and part came back after the market comparison that HR did with the 1/3 positions that were up for examination this year. So community development will reclass the admin secretary to a permit technician. Animal control has the ACO supervisor to the animal shelter supervisor will be a step up. Animal control officer to animal control enforcement supervisor. That's a little bit of a reorganization the police department would like to do at the animal shelter. And then animal control assistant came back with a small increase. We had a number of technician positions in public works under airport, refuse, and streets. Just airport and refuse primarily, the technician reclass. There's also been some reorganization going on at Public Works. There were some additional duties added to these technicians, so they were all reclassed a little higher. Streets traffic technicians, not so much on the supervisory side, but compared to other streets technicians in the state. Same thing, oops. Engineering, drafting technician was one that came back well below where it should have been, which makes sense in what we're seeing around the state with especially very technically oriented positions. They're highly in demand. Facilities maintenance workers and the human resources recruitment coordinator were also slightly below comparisons around the state. And then, as you probably remember too, police corporal was substantially under, and that represents a 10% increase for our police corporals. Retirements. Although we have a significant PSPRS contribution increase for next year, that's actually not a bad thing. That is a increase for, so our percentage actually went down. So the required contribution fiscal year 23 for the police department was 68.98%. Fiscal year 24 will be 66.8%. On the fire side, this current year we're at 56.6%. Next year it goes down to 55.42%. But if you recall, your policy to help pay down our unfunded liability is to keep what we're budgeting at the higher rate and make that money into an additional payment. So it's good news. Our contribution going down is the percentage required going down is what we want to see, which means we are tracking in the right direction. And then the increase on the ASRS side, there was a small increase in the contribution rate, but that also reflects some of our new personnel adding to our staff.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Did the contribution per individual contribution, did that go up or down for this fiscal year coming forward?
For ASRS,
Yes, ma'am.
the increase, it went up
Okay.
by like 0.1 or 0.2%.
That the individual pays, not our share.
Both.
Both? Okay. Thank you.
Just to show you personnel cost by fund and the change. The change in CCOM is due to a personnel restructuring. Overall, the changes predominantly are, this includes the 2% annual step increase for all staff on July 1st, and then a 2% market adjustment on January 1st, 2024, and also reflects the new positions and reclassifications that I just described. All right, getting through our capital projects for next year. Under the police department, we have the animal control expansion and design budgeted. For police Tahoes, we're in a regular replacement schedule now. We're past needing to buy a whole bunch at one time, so this is their regular replacement. A new truck out at ACO. And then the VH radio system is our DEMA grant from the state, which we did receive good news. They sent a letter a couple weeks ago clarifying that they didn't mean to alarm all of us that they were taking all the money away. The state will honor all awarded grant funds, which this one, we did receive a letter that it was awarded. So we will be seeing that sometime in the next year. So far. Fire department, 2 Lucas devices, 1 new ambulance, 2 carryover ambulances. We're not expecting those until probably next spring, still unfortunately, but they're on their way. 2 trucks that are in outfitting right now, so we should have those in the next couple of months. And then the cost to acquire the land beside Station 2. In IT, a new printer for the library. This is their big patron printer that gets a lot of use, needs replacement. 2 license plate readers for the police department. That will be part of their real-time crime center, and they're mobile and can move around town. The PD training room and EOC upgrade, that's a carryover. I believe it should be wrapped up around August.
That's great.
And then security cameras for Public Works, Sears Center Park, and we unfortunately had to add some security cameras for the Veterans Park Sports Complex after the recent vandalization of the turf. A number of items and facilities, generator placements, fire station card readers, real-time crime center, again, wrapping up later this year, upgrading the power at the Veterans Park Pavilion, a few trucks to carry over, and then the Schneider projects you see, they are all within a few months of wrapping up, so that will be the final pieces of each of those projects over the next couple of months in the early next fiscal year. One project under the library, they are installing another book kiosk up on Fort Huachuca, just like the one that is in the mall. So that'll be a really cool addition up on Fort Huachuca. In parks, we moved the Fab and Fry, the survey and the design over to the Parks Department, and then much of the same projects you saw before, replacing the multi-use path at Forest Dorner. That's the one that goes right alongside Buffalo Soldier Trail, right there where North Garden meets Buffalo Soldier, around almost all the way to Fry Boulevard. Some sheds are needed at Veterans Park for a lot of the equipment that goes along with the new sports complex. A number of trucks, a number of carryover tractors and mowers, Roadrunner Park design, again, and then a few other projects. Garden Canyon Linear Park, that is putting in the paths and some of the spaces for Ramadas down in Garden Canyon Linear Park. Soldier Creek Park carryover is CDBG project from this year. Some disc golf improvements, and then Ms. Wilson is pursuing the Diamondbacks grant again this year.
Yes, ma'am.
And just where do you have a place in mind where the kiosk is going for, or the vending machine for the books? Unfortunately.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Humphrey. We are currently speaking to Fort Huachuca about where they would like to see that. Trying to get some suggestions for highly visible foot trafficked areas. And we're still discussing that right now. We haven't pinpointed the location yet.
Okay, thank you.
Community development and fleet, just a couple of vehicles. I'll point out our Ford Escapes are shifting to Chevy Equinox after Ford is no longer making Escapes available for government purchase. So I think the Chevy Equinox was a good switch. We were able to buy all of the ones in this year's budget here locally, so. And a CCOM project for radio upgrade. At the airport, we're budgeting for the NEPA study for the 203 acres. It's part of the conveyance process. We know we'll need to do that. 2 generator replacements, the airport master plan update that is primarily funded through the FAA grant that we are just waiting for our decision letter. And the utility installation is the DSIP grant that staff are working on to submit by next Friday. In the sewer fund, I missed this one when I turned in the presentation. That public sewer mainline extension should just be capital improvement fund. That's the $500,000 grant match for the LWCF grant we plan to apply for next year. The sewer line run from the OICC down to Domingo Paez, construction of the bathrooms, construction of a parking lot along Tacoma, RV parking down across from Domingo Paez. So it's not actually in the sewer fund. We just listed it there. The wastewater master plan is also budgeted under sewer, and then 2 carryover projects that are currently ongoing. In refuse, still just the trash can cleaner for next year, and 3 other small-ish carryover projects. The HERF fund, not a lot of change here. A couple additions though. So we will still be budgeting for Buffalo Soldier Trail extension for the proposed school to be built. And again, that money will come from the additional $2 million in income tax that we'll see this year, but not next year. Fry North Garden construction, after having a little bit of worry about how that project came back. The construction estimate, Sharon staff did an excellent job over the past week, really dialing in that project, taking a second look at it, making sure that some things were out of it that we really didn't need, and we've got it down to a pretty good place, and we're working on the final adjustments for that project to finish up in design and hopefully go out to bid here soon. Annual street maintenance is budgeted at $1.5 million for next year. We have pulled together $1.2 million so far for reconstruction of Martin Luther King in between Avenida Escuela and Highway 90.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And how much are we guessing we need?
Well, that was part of the conversation that we had in the past week as well, for additional money for North Garden should it be needed. Irene took a second look at that project, and we think we might be able to get away between $800,000 and $900,000 because we don't need to reconstruct it all the way to the ground. We can do a less of a reconstruction. We don't need quite that extensive of one, so we could allocate that money towards the North Garden project if we need it.
Thank you.
We have a bucket truck, a carryover pickup truck. The BST reconstruction phase 1 is our federal appropriation request. Theater Drive, $1.8 million. That is a state appropriation that we know we will be receiving. So we'll be working on that over the next year. And then the last three projects, the State Route Connector, Shared Use Path, and West End improvements are both raised grant applications. And the final one is our MPDG grant application for this year. Nothing has changed in the LTAF fund from the last time you saw it. We have a number of carryover projects, all grant funded. The bus stop at Walmart, a few shelter replacements, the BST pathway and South Route 92 pathway connectivity programs were grants for multi-use paths. And then our other projects, which cover everything from the connectivity and safety projects, were 5th Street, Bel Air, Judd, Taylor, lighting, Bartow, and a little bit of Fab, the street improvements that will be happening there, curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and so on. The pedestrian walkway connection construction carryover project is, again, lighting, sidewalk, curb and gutter. And then the final project, multi-use paths, those are Oakmont and El Camino Real, the bypass from 7th to Coronado, and the bypass from Coronado to Campus Drive. And then finally, I skipped over the transit master plan, will also be in there for development next year. All right, wrapping up here, similar to what you heard at our last work session, or possibly two budget work sessions ago. They are running together in my brain. Looking to the future, we'll continue to keep a close eye on our class comp plan, what other communities are doing around the state, and how our salaries for our staff are tracking in comparison. Public safety retirements, both our PRS costs and how many retirements we have coming up at the PD, which is why recruitment remains a high priority with the police department. Chuck mentioned street maintenance earlier. The impact on local revenue from the state, I'll expand. It's not just our income tax, although just today the legislature did reintroduce another bill to decrease our income tax once again. So we continue to keep an eye on both that and other potential revenue reductions from the state, including food tax and rental tax. The state legislature is still trying in this session to adjust those. Census impacts on our local revenue. We continue to watch. The valley continues to grow at a faster rate than us, which means the pie of state shared revenue gets reduced a little smaller and smaller as we grow a little less slowly compared to other communities. So we watch that very closely. And again, as Chuck mentioned at the beginning of the work session here, the economy in general, as we watch our sales tax and pay very close attention to how that's trending.
I thought we were past the point where they could introduce new bills. Like there was like a cutoff date for that. It was before they passed the budget.
Mayor Pro Tem Umphrey, you're correct, but they have not sine died yet, and there's talk that they will not until later this year. So I am not quite certain how they continue to introduce new bills or amendments. I believe they are amending existing bills that have not been transmitted to the governor yet. And so they're not new bills. They're either strike everything or amendments.
Okay, yeah, right, okay, thank you. Oh,
Of course, they set their own rules,
I know, why?
so there's that as well.
All right, looking ahead, your tentative budget adoption is next week, next Thursday, June 22nd. That will set the cap on your budget. We cannot go over that cap, but we can still move things around within the budget. July 27th is your public hearing on your property tax levy and your final budget adoption, followed by the last official action of your budget year will be August 10th with your tax levy adoption. If there are any further questions,
Yes,
here
sir.
my staff will be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Amazing presentation. Along with our one-on-one sessions, it makes so much more sense. It's a lot to take in. There's a lot of work that's done to this, to put this stuff, so I really appreciate that. One thing I asked last year, it was kind of newer, was the legalization of marijuana in Arizona, those funds, talking about state share revenue, things like that. Where is that at? Where are we at with that? How much have we gotten? I know it goes into our public safety funds, but it's not represented anywhere easily.
Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, we last year got about $150,000, $160,000 from it, and we just increased the PSPR's contribution with it.
Right.
That's what we've used it for.
So-
And that's just budgeted again this year.
Right.
In the intergovernmental revenue.
So when that slide we went over where PSPS contribution went up, that's part of that. I know it goes in there, but I didn't see it anywhere, like last year compared to this year. I know that's where it goes, but I just didn't see it.
We don't,
It doesn't get called out
we doesn't
specifically.
get called out.
Yeah,
don't
but we
call it out
can,
specifically.
we can specify it better.
We can call it out in the budget.
Oh, just if possible, we could just track it through the years, and I think that'd be something to look at, see how much money we're getting from that.
Other questions, comments? You sure you want to ask that question? You sure you don't want to ask that question?
No, I did.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
All right, no problem, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council.
Item number 3, discussion of council handbook.
I believe Mr. Benning asked for this.
Oh, yes, sir, you asked for it.
Are we doing that tonight, or are we coming tomorrow? What are we doing, right now?
We have time.
Yeah, I think we have time.
All right, so reason I wanted to make sure everybody's tracking the city manager-led city, what our roles and responsibilities are, where our lane is, and what our standard operating procedures are. There's complaints coming in, I'll just leave it at that. So I wanted to make sure we all knew what our standard operating procedures were, if we had any issues with them, if we wanted to change things. Some of the things we can't change, of course, is the beginning, roles and responsibilities. But that's why I wanted to have this on a work session, just so we can discuss it and figure out, do we like everything that's in here? Do we want to change anything? Do we want to look at anything else?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I understand and what you're saying, but unless you're kind of specific on what we're really looking at, I mean, that's a pretty general statement that you're saying, and, I don't want you to call anybody out, but you have to be a little bit more specific exactly what the complaints are.
No, I'm not gonna address the complaints. I just want to make sure everyone here is on point with what chapter 1 through chapter 10 says our roles and our responsibilities are. And if we have questions about them, to have a chance to discuss them and talk about them. If we don't have questions about them, then we're good. But, yes, ma'am.
We just recently
Added
made
to
some
it.
amendments and made some changes, so that was, the date here says May 4th, so that wasn't very long ago. So I don't know if anything's changed since we had that last discussion. Because I feel like if there was some issue, I feel like it really probably should have been called out, unless something's happened since then.
Question, comments? Mr. Benning?
Oh, I'm not gonna call complaints out. If the individuals want to bring complaints out openly, I'll let them do that. But like I said, I just want to make sure we're understanding chapters 1 through 10, especially chapter 2, of what our roles and responsibilities are. We're the legislative branch of this city, We're not the day-to-day operations. We're not the down in the dirt, we do the job people. We are the legislative policies and procedures part of this city. And other than that, I'm not gonna tell anybody how to be a council member or mayor or anything. I'm just saying, let's make sure we understand chapters 1 through 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I mean, I understand that, you know, we're doing the overview, but in order to understand what we're overviewing, we have to get, at least we need to, as you stated, we need to know what the flower and what the weed is. And so we have to get down. I mean, I hope that we're not, you know, impeding someone's job or their supervisor's job, but you do have to learn what is going on in all the departments in order to understand what the overview and the policies and everything is. You can't just not understand and try to make decisions that affects the city without doing that, in my opinion.
All right. Any other comments? Mr. Benning?
I'm good.
Well, all right, I'll open my big mouth. I've been on council here 2 years and 6 months now, and I always took this job on as a policy person. I don't get into minutia. That is for staff to do. And sometimes I hear questions that come from this dais that are minutia. That's not our job. Our job is to be policymakers, pass the budget, create a strategic plan for the city looking forward, and that's what our job is. When we start questioning day-to-day activities, I think that's wrong. I mean, we have a city manager, assistant city manager, great staff, and when we start getting into the weeds, I think we're overstepping our bounds. That's my opinion, and I agree with Will.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. Questions? Other comments? That's you, Mr. Benning?
Oh, I'm
Ready?
good.
Oh, you good?
I'm good.
I think we all understand chapter number 2. I definitely do, the roles and responsibilities. So that as we all understand it, go forward, we can implement this city council workbook, I think. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. That's item number 2. Number 3. And let's go to item number 4, discussion of check deduction process. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So I've been asked to provide an overview of payroll checks, deduction processes. So I'm going to try to run through that, and I'll be happy as I go along to answer any questions or concerns that you have. So the city operates on a biweekly payroll. So we do payroll every other Friday, 26 times a year. The last payroll would have been this last Friday on the 4th of June. The following week would be the week that we settle out things like deductions and stuff would be technically the non-payroll weeks. We may get to some of those, you know, the Thursday or Friday of payroll, but oftentimes they'll settle out the following weeks, okay? Your payroll that went out on June the 4th, 2023 was $1,090,000 to 457 employees, and there were 46 categories of deductions, totaling a little over $3,000 in deductions. The median there is about 10 deductions per employee. You have both voluntary and mandatory deductions. For example, just about every employee is going to have a deduction for state and or federal taxes. Okay. Many of these employees are going to have mandatory deductions for things like retirement plans, as in the ASRS and the PSPRS plans are not voluntary, they're mandatory for those, okay? Then we've also got voluntary retirement programs that employees can opt into, and there's a big selection of those. Those include many different 457 plans, some different IRA plans, such as some Roths and things like that. And then we've also got health benefits. While employees are covered primarily by the city, they may be covering dependent coverage. Those would be payroll deductions that we deduct from them, medical and dental, and then there's a optional vision insurance that they can cover for the employee, as well as things like life insurance. Okay. Then we've got deductions for flexible spending accounts and health savings accounts. Flexible spending accounts can be something you put in pre-tax, so that's going to be for if you're on regular insurance. The health savings account would be if you're on a high deductible option plan. You can put those in and save tax dollars. You pay those funds pre-tax. Those are deductions that are moved forward. We also offer some optional life insurance for the employee as well as their dependent coverage, AFLAC, Legal Shield, things of that kind of such. Again, there's 3,000 deductions per pay period, give or take. We have court-ordered deductions that are many, which are things like child support. We also have garnishments for IRS, for different debts, and for student loans. We have many changes every single payroll. People come in daily and they do things like change withholding, change their contributions to 457s. Those are worked on, again, as the payrolls come up. Talk a little bit about how they're paid. A lot of different ways with that many different deductions. You got a lot of them that are being paid in state and federal taxes. Those are paid by wire or ACH as one lump sum. We also go on to many of these onto online portals, onto like say AFLAC's website or Delta Dental's website. We sign in, we mark what the payments are going to be and do the payment through those. And then we have a lot that are mailed checks. For example, garnishments are generally mailed. Child support, specifically all of your out-of-state child support, those checks go into the Postal Service. Big majority of these deductions are paid per pay period. There are some that are paid on a monthly billing basis. And that's my rundown on your payroll deductions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can for you.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions, comments?
Thank you for that rundown.
You're welcome. 3,000
deductions. That's kind of the number I was looking for, numbers like that. 3,000 deductions per pay period. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you look at 457 employees paid this pay period, and very few are going to have more than three. Less than three, sorry. And it's very common to see 10 per person, that they've got 3 or 4 different taxes, 1 or 2 different retirement plans, maybe an HSA, maybe AFLAC, the various things. So very common. So yeah, it's about 3,000 deductions per pay period.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that's item number 4. So we no longer need additional work sessions for 13th and 14th?
No. Mr. Mayor, unless you have any other further questions about the budget or changes, I think the sessions are over.
Roger that. No other questions, comments for budget sessions? I think we have consensus. No longer needed.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Final comments?
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you, staff. Outstanding. With that, we are adjourned.